A black general, 3 stars shining on his shoulders, handcuffed like a criminal, simply for walking into a diner in a town that did not know his name. But after that night, the entire nation would remember it. His deep green uniform still carried the dust of travel. The 3 stars were not awarded as decorations. They were forged from years spent amid gunfire and the dust of battlefields. Lieutenant General Marcus Tate, 52 years old, a name recorded in classified Pentagon documents, a man who had led missions the press was never allowed to mention, now only wanted a quiet dinner. He pulled over in Greystone, Virginia, a faint dot on the map, nestled between faded billboards and deserted gas stations, a stop no one remembered until tonight. The black rental sedan, military license plates gleaming, rolled slowly into the parking lot of a diner named Ruby's. The red and blue neon sign flickered, hung askew, and rattled in the breeze as if weary itself. It promised a hot burger and a few moments of peace after 6 hours of driving from Washington, D.C. Marcus stepped out with a straight, steady posture. Every step carried an authority that needed no announcement. His shoes were polished, his uniform crisp. The 3 stars on his shoulders reflected the silver moonlight, declaring that he came from a place of command. The bell above the door jingled as he entered. A family looked up from their dinner. A truck driver paused mid-chew, not out of suspicion but from instinctive respect. No one knew his name, but everyone could feel that this man was different. He chose a table near the window and sat upright, calm yet composed. He ordered a cheeseburger and black coffee with no sugar. He checked his phone. A briefing from the Pentagon for the next day. A message from his wife. "Drive safe. I'll be waiting." He allowed himself a small smile. It seemed like a normal night. But the internal clock that once helped him survive ambushes in Kandahar stirred slightly. Something was off. A strange chill passed through his spine. Outside, 2 figures stood beneath the dim parking lot light. Dale Ramsey in his 50s, with a bloated belly, tobacco-stained skin, and eyes dulled from years of never being questioned. Travis Holt, not yet 30, shaved head, muscular, a sharp glare but a soft core. They leaned against their patrol car, cigarettes glowing in the dark. "Nice car," Ramsey muttered. "Military plates, but that guy looks more like a poser than the real deal," Holt replied, exhaling smoke into the wind. They didn't check the plates, didn't radio for confirmation. They had already decided what they believed. They waited, not out of duty but instinct, shaped by a broken system. They waited for something to go wrong, even if they had to make it happen. A cold wind swept across the lot, carrying cigarette ash, mildew, and a night that would never be erased from the memory of this town. Inside, Marcus ate his cheeseburger with the gratitude of a man who had once survived on cold rations during night shelling in Helmand. Each bite, each sip of hot coffee reminded him that simplicity was a privilege reserved for survivors. The waitress Jenny, with her hair tied back and eyes filled with the warmth of a lifetime spent in a small town, came by to refill his coffee. "Are you stationed nearby?" she asked kindly and with genuine curiosity. Marcus looked up. His gaze held no pride, no coldness, just calm. The calm of someone who had heard every kind of explosion and still stood tall. "Just passing through," he said, his voice deep and slightly hoarse. "I have a meeting down south." Jenny nodded, as though she felt honored by his trust. Some people do not need to explain themselves. They walk in, and you simply know. Marcus left a tip 3 times the value of the meal. He stood, adjusted his tie, and nodded to the diners around him. His pace was measured, his posture unshaken. No one in Ruby's knew his next steps were not toward a meeting, but toward a different battlefield. There would be no bombs, no marching orders, only prejudice dressed in a police uniform. Outside, the winter air sliced through the night. Every footstep echoed clearly across the asphalt. Marcus slipped a hand into his coat pocket, reaching for his keys. He thought the night was over. Then came a shout that cut through the dark like a bullet. "Hey, stop right there!" Marcus stopped. His hand was still in midair. It was not fear that held him. It was instinct. The instinct of a man who had survived raids, who had heard the first sound of a gun and already knew what to do. He turned. Slowly, deliberately. A flashlight beam struck him directly in the face. The light was intense and burning, slicing across the darkness like a blade. There were no questions, no explanation. All that mattered was his skin. Out of the shadows stepped Dale Ramsey, tall and broad-shouldered, with a belly spilling over his belt. The smell of cigarettes, sweat, and disdain clung to every movement he made. "Nice uniform," he said with a sneer. "Where'd you get it? Surplus tent sale?" Marcus did not respond right away. He did not bow his head. He did not move. He simply looked forward, with a gaze that had once made Special Forces soldiers hold their breath at front-line briefings. "Who are you?" Ramsey repeated, his voice grinding low as he gripped the flashlight tighter, ready to strike. From a distance, Travis Holt approached, eyes alert like a hunting dog catching the scent of foreign prey. Neither of them needed a reason. They didn't need orders. Their conclusion had already been written in their minds before the first word was spoken. The flashlight beam hit Marcus's medals and the 3 stars on his shoulder, treating them like props from a cheap stage play. Marcus clenched his jaw slightly, but his voice remained composed, a tone refined through thousands of high-stakes military negotiations. "I am Lieutenant General Marcus Tate, United States Army." Officer Holt began circling behind him, his grin twisted, his shaved head gleaming under the harsh light. "A general, huh? Fancy. Got any proof for that fairy tale?" Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on Ramsey. "Left pocket. May I reach for it?" Ramsey's hand twitched near his holster. His eyes narrowed. "Slow?" "Very slow." Marcus extended 2 fingers into his coat pocket and carefully pulled out his wallet, holding it out as proof, but neither man bothered to inspect it closely. Holt snatched it, flipped it open, scanned the photo, name, rank, and valid ID, then he tossed it toward Ramsey like it was a crumpled napkin. "Could be fake," Ramsey shrugged. "Doesn't look like any general I've ever seen." The words were more than an insult. They were a strike at identity. Marcus looked him directly in the eyes. His voice was not loud, but sharp enough to cut. "Because I'm black? Or because I don't match the poster you keep in your head?" The air thickened like wet cement. A few people had gathered near the entrance of the diner. Jenny, the waitress, stepped outside with arms folded, her face drawn tight. In the distance, a couple of gas station customers began recording with their phones. Ramsey flushed, not from shame, but from the pride of being challenged. "Don't get smart with me," he growled, stepping in close enough for Marcus to smell the sweat soaking his collar. "I'm going to verify this. If you're lying, your life's about to get real hard." Marcus did not step back. "Call Fort Bragg. Ask for Colonel Denise Warren. She will confirm who I am." Holt let out a laugh. It was sharp and hollow like scraped metal. "We don't need bedtime stories. Hands on the hood." Marcus remained still. His voice dropped, but every word struck the air like a nail. "I am not resisting, but I will not comply with an unlawful order. You have no grounds to detain me." That was the moment everything exploded. Ramsey lunged forward, grabbing Marcus's arm and twisting it violently, slamming his chest against the freezing metal hood. His uniform crumpled under the pressure. Cold steel snapped open, the handcuffs locked in place with a screech. "Trying to be tough?" Ramsey muttered, his breath hot and sour against Marcus's ear. "Let's see how long that lasts." The image of a general in handcuffs, under pale yellow lights and surrounded by cameras, would not fade quietly as they imagined. They did not know that a call had already been made, and the person who picked up was not a sleepy town dispatcher, but a senior officer at a military desk in Washington, D.C. The handcuffs bit into Marcus's wrists, leaving deep, burning red marks, but he made no sound. His years in combat had taught him this: pain is real, but surrender is a choice. "You're under arrest for impersonating an officer and obstructing law enforcement," Holt declared as if announcing a courtroom victory. He swung open the cruiser door like stepping onto a stage. Marcus did not resist. He did not shout. He did not beg. He had held dying soldiers in his arms, watched blood soak into the soil of foreign lands. This, compared to war, was simply another battlefield in a different shape. As Ramsey shoved him into the back seat, Marcus turned his head and spoke, his voice like drawn steel cutting through the wind. "Phone's in my right pocket. Call the number labeled Pentagon. Do it now, or tomorrow you'll wish you had." Ramsey scoffed, pushing harder. "Save that for the judge." Outside, the crowd grew. Phones were raised, flashes flickered, murmurs turned to waves of voices. Jenny stepped forward, fists clenched, eyes wet. "Dale, stop. He didn't do anything wrong." "Step back, Janie. You want to get arrested too," Ramsey snapped, finger pointed at her face. Jenny froze, but she didn't retreat. Her eyes stayed on Marcus. It was a silent promise. She wouldn't let this go. The car door slammed shut. The cruiser's interior was cramped and stifling, filled with the stale scent of worn leather and quiet fury. Marcus looked out through the blurred window. Angry, stunned faces stared back, capturing history through their phone screens. He knew this was no longer about him alone. The Greystone police station was a squat gray concrete box reeking of bleach. It was the kind of place where the idea of justice came to suffocate. Fluorescent lights flickered against grimy walls. Marcus sat chained to a scratched metal table, his hands still cuffed. His uniform was wrinkled, dirt smudged at the sleeves, but his posture never wavered. His back was straight, chin high, eyes unbowed. Ramsey and Holt leaned against the wall, bitter coffee in hand, laughter echoing through a room meant for law. "This guy's got to have a record," Holt said, eyes glued to the tablet. "Nobody plays the role of a general that well without rehearsal." "Had a guy once show up in a full colonel's outfit just to score free beer at the VFW," Ramsey chuckled. "This one's the same, just aiming higher." Their laughter bounced off the walls. Marcus did not respond, his eyes fixed on the clock above the door. 11:47 p.m. Each second passed like a drumbeat, reminding him to wait, to hold. He had been here before, not in cuffs, but in moments when even his existence had been questioned. At 23, a gate guard had once said, "You look more like a private pretending to be a captain." At 38, an assistant at the Pentagon double-checked his badge, not believing he had clearance to enter a high-level briefing room. Each time, he had let the truth do the work. Tonight would be no different. The door creaked open. A harsh squeal. Chief Callahan walked in. Graybeard, bloodshot eyes from too many sleepless nights. In his hand was Marcus's old leather wallet. He flipped open the military ID and squinted at it. "This ID says you're a 3-star general," Callahan said, his voice raspy. "Is that real, or did we just arrest the best street performer in the country?" It was a moment when honor, career, and truth all stood together at the gate of judgment. "You think I'm wasting everyone's time?" Marcus asked, his voice like ice slicing through the air, thick with bias. "I am Lieutenant General Marcus Tate, United States Joint Task Force. That is a fact. And your officers would have known that if they had done their job instead of playing judge and executioner on the pavement." Chief Callahan furrowed his brow. He glanced at Ramsey, whose expression remained stone cold. "It was defiant, Chief," Ramsey replied curtly. "Didn't cooperate, something's off. Who rents a car dressed like they're headed to a summit?" Marcus leaned forward, his eyes fixed, unblinking. The handcuffs clinked against the metal table, sharp like an alarm bell. "Not cooperating?" he said, voice low and steady. "I handed over my ID. I suggested a verification call. I remained calm while your men insulted me and put me in cuffs like a criminal. The only thing off here is the way they think, and every second you hesitate is a price you will have to pay." The room froze. Callahan hesitated. He stared at the military ID once more and let out a heavy sigh. The weight began to show in the lines on his forehead. "All right, one call," he said, sliding the desk phone toward Marcus. "But if this is a trick, you're not leaving here tonight." Marcus didn't rush. He glanced at Ramsey and Holt. Their smug smiles were fading fast. "Put it on speaker," he said coldly. "All of you need to hear this." Each button press sounded like a countdown to judgment. The line rang. Then a female voice answered, clear and cold. "Office of the Deputy Secretary of Defense?" Marcus spoke with a voice that wasn't loud, but carried the edge of command. "This is Lieutenant General Tate. Connect me to Secretary Hargrove. Priority 1. A brief pause. Then the tone of the room changed. "Yes, sir. Connecting now." Ramsey snorted, ready to burst into laughter. But the sound died in his throat when the voice of Elaine Hargrove erupted through the speaker. It was a voice like thunder at noon, flooding the room. "Marcus, where are you? What the hell is going on?" No greeting, no formalities. "Only steel in every syllable," Marcus responded calmly, each word like a nail driven into the coffin of ignorance. "Greystone, Virginia. I was arrested by local police under suspicion of impersonation. Handcuffed. Detained without cause. No protocol, no legal grounds. I need this resolved immediately." Silence. Then a blast. "Chief, who is on this line?" Hargrove's voice was sharp as a blade. Callahan swallowed hard. Sweat dotted both sides of his forehead. "This is Ed Callahan, ma'am." Hargrove didn't pause. "Listen closely, Callahan. You are detaining a general whose contributions you cannot begin to understand. A man who has led missions the President himself needed clearance to learn about. A man who has saved hundreds of lives, while your officers can't read a military ID. Ably arrested him because he is black, because they saw skin before they saw stars. Release him immediately. If not, I will have military police from Fort Bragg at your station within the hour, and I will call your governor directly at midnight. Do you understand me?" The room was silent as a grave. Callahan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Ramsey looked at the floor. The coffee cup in his hand trembled, as though he had set fire to his own career. Holt stepped back toward the wall, his face pale like a child who had broken something priceless. Callahan nodded quickly, his voice hoarse. "Uncuff him, now." Holt fumbled, dropping the key with a loud clatter. his hand shaking as he tried to insert it into the lock. The clicking echoed like a gunshot through what little dignity remained in the room. Marcus stood. Slowly, steadily, he rubbed his bruised wrists, eyes sweeping the room. Ramsey kept his head down. Holt wouldn't meet his gaze. Callahan looked like he wished he could vanish into the floor. Callahan stammered, holding the wallet out with both hands. "General, I apologize. This was a mistake, a very serious mistake." Marcus took back his wallet. His voice was low, but so cold it chilled the air. "A mistake is forgetting someone's name. This..." He looked up and stared directly at Callahan. No shouting, no insults, just the unfiltered truth. That this was a choice. You chose not to believe my ID, you chose not to believe my rank. Because I didn't match your idea of what authority looks like. This isn't a mistake, Chief. It's a failure, and it's yours. Marcus turned and walked out of the interrogation room, each step cutting through the weight of the air. The steel door shut behind him. The echo of its thud marked the end of an era when truth was still questioned because of skin color. Outside, the night was quiet. Stars pierced the sky like silent wounds. Marcus got in the car. The engine purred like a whisper, but his mind was not at rest. He wasn't angry, just tired. He drove south. Streetlights slid across the windshield like scattered fragments of memory. Ramsey's sneer. Holt's smirk. Jenny standing tall like a flagpole in a storm. His phone buzzed. Warren. Sheila, old friends. He let it ring, not because he didn't need them, but because he wasn't ready to say anything. By morning, Greystone was no longer sleepy. The video from the parking lot, flashlight glare, Marcus's head pushed against the hood, Holt's laugh, Ramsey's growl, spread across the internet like wildfire. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, hashtags, filled every platform. Justice for Tate, General Tate, millions of views. Ruby's Diner was no longer just a restaurant. It had become a relay station for the entire country. Locals, journalists, students, veterans. They came in waves. Jenny stood behind the counter. She wasn't afraid. She didn't hesitate. "I told Dale he was wrong," she said, her eyes burning with righteous anger. "That man was decent. A soldier. And they treated him like trash because his skin didn't match their comfort." By noon, the story was on CNN. By evening, it aired on NBC. Even conservative networks had to report it. They tried to twist it, but the core truth couldn't be denied. A decorated black general, a battlefield hero, humiliated for simply existing. Greystone tightened like a drawn bowstring. Protests formed outside the police station. Signs rose into the air. "See us. Don't shackle us. General, not a criminal." Some in Greystone still clung to mutterings about law and order. Ramsey kept his curtains shut, dodging every stare. Old posts surfaced, filled with hatred and slurs. Public outrage erupted like flame across dry brush. The Pentagon did not stay silent. Secretary Harborough personally called the Virginia Department of Justice, demanding a full audit of the Greystone Police Department. The Department of Defense launched a federal inquiry, reviewing every interaction between police and black service members, not just in Greystone but nationwide. Marcus did not ask for the spotlight. He never needed it, but he didn't run from it either. "You don't fight for yourself," he once told a young major. "You fight for the one who hasn't arrived yet." Just days later, Ramsey and Holt were suspended, their records pulled apart, complaints ignored for years, were now evidence, loud and undeniable. Then came the final blow. A leaked body cam video, Apsy's voice dripping with contempt, calling Marcus a costume fraud in a Redl suit. Holt's laughter hardened mocking, like a hammer smashing the idea of justice. The fury spread far beyond Greystone. Richmond. Washington, D.C. banners were held high. We are not the shapes in your fear. See us as human. Images of Marcus, his crisp uniform, his unwavering gaze, became more than symbols. A soldier shamed but unbroken, a voice for millions. At Fort Bragg, Marcus entered the conference room. Colonel Warren embraced him firmly. "You all right, General?" she asked, eyes locked on his face. Marcus nodded, half a smile forming. "Just a bad cop, not enough to bring me down." The meeting resumed. Drones. Budgets. Strategy. But something had shifted. The eyes of his colleagues held something new that day. Admiration. After the meeting, a young black lieutenant approached him. His voice trembled slightly. "Sir, how did you endure all of that?" Marcus looked at the young soldier and saw himself years ago. Young, sharp-edged, unwilling to bow. "You don't just survive," Marcus said. "You carve your name into every step until they see you, not what they fear. Every step you take is a lesson. For you, for them." In Greystone, there was nowhere left to hide. Chief Callahan called a full town meeting at the high school gymnasium. It was packed, elderly, students, black, white. Jenny live-streamed it. Her hands no longer shook behind the camera. Callahan spoke. His voice trembled more than the lens. We failed, General Tate. We failed this town. I am resigning. We have to start again." Boos, applause, chaos. Then a pastor stood up. His voice rang out like a church bell. "This is not just about one resignation. It's about seeing each other. As neighbors, as people. If not now, then when?" Weeks later, Jenny called. "General Tate," she said with a smile in her voice, "they're retraining the whole police force. Ramsey's gone. Holt's been pushed to desk duty. And the people, they're talking, really talking." Marcus smiled. In his mind, he saw Jenny, still at Ruby's, still pouring coffee, but now keeping the flame for the whole town. "You did good, Jenny. Better than you think." He never went back to Greystone. He didn't need to, because that story was no longer just his. The story of Marcus Tate was no longer about a man in uniform being handcuffed for his skin. It belonged to everyone who had ever been misjudged, dismissed, or stripped of their dignity. At Fort Bragg, he mentored a black female captain with fire in her eyes and worry in her voice. "They're going to test me," she said. Marcus nodded without pause. "Let them. You're not just passing through. You're building the road. Stand tall. Eventually they'll learn how to look differently." Time passed. The scar of Greystone still lingered. Ramsey faded into silence. Even old friends avoided him. Holt left town. His name turned toxic. A new police chief arrived from Philadelphia, tough, unyielding. She rewrote the entire code of bias training accountability protocols. A community oversight board. The schools added Marcus's name to their curriculum. Churches held vigils, not just to forgive, but to understand. Marcus didn't follow every change, but he felt them. Every ripple from that single night spread like a quiet tide. One evening, Sheila handed him her phone with a post going viral. A photo of him at Ruby's, smiling gently under the caption, a hero who never bowed. Marcus shook his head, but Sheila held his hand and squeezed softly. They see you, Marcus. Let them see. He thought of his father, a Vietnam veteran, who had endured spit and slurs, yet always said, "Don't shoot back, son. Silence burns brighter than any gun." Marcus had always kept that fire, the handcuffs, the mocking laughter, the cold hood of a car against his chest. They did not vanish, but they became scars, not wounds. And in those scars remained Jenny's voice, Hargrove's fury, Sheila's hand, and the millions of strangers who had truly seen him. Greystone was only one battle in a much longer war. But Marcus had won not with fists but with truth. And if you've ever been judged, knocked down, or told you don't belong here, remember this. You do what, like the ground, belongs to you. Live like your light cannot be dimmed,